Today I want to take a quick look at decibels so we can see what these things are all about, because it turns out it has to do with all this exponential work that we've been doing recently. And usually we hear about decibels being used as a way to describe sound and how loud something is. There's actually all sorts of other ways that decibels are used, but what we're really interested in today is sound measurements. And so in order to be able to look at a few comparisons and what you might actually need to use this stuff for, we're going to go vacuum shopping. And we've come across three possible candidates. The first one is the Dyson, which we are told is rated at 75 to 80 decibels on its sound level. We have a Hoover, which is rated between 80 and 85 decibels. And we have this Miele, which is rated between 65 and 70 decibels. The question is that really going to be a big difference? Because we are going to go anywhere between, I'm going to just call it 65, 75, and 85 decibels. I mean, does this mean that they're very close? And so, let's just go with whichever one's cheaper or has the best performance? Or are these going to actually represent fairly significant differences in the noise that we're going to encounter in our house every time we want to go and clean the rug? Well, let's take a look at it here. Our intuition would be to think that the decibel measurements here were linear. And so if we did a little bit of calculating that way, 75 is 15% bigger than 65, so we might think that the Dyson is 15% louder than the Miele. And similarly, we could figure out, okay, well then wouldn't the Hoover be 30% louder than the Miele? Turns out not really, because of the way decibels work. Decibels are not actually a linear scale or a linear measurement. Decibels are actually exponential. And so if we actually jumped in and did some calculations dealing with this, you can go and look into decibels on your own to see how we get these numbers. We would actually find that the Dyson is 3 times as loud as the Miele. And the Hoover, it would be 10 times as loud as the Miele. To give you some perspective about what those numbers are actually meaning here, here's a few other points of comparison here. So like a normal conversation would be 60 decibels. So the Miele at 65, we could probably carry on a fairly reasonable conversation while vacuuming there. We might have to raise our voices a little bit, but just a little bit. Your normal morning shower would come in at about 70 decibels. So your shower would actually be louder than the Miele, but it'd be quieter than the Dyson, which comes in at 75. The Dyson is about halfway on our scale between shower and garbage disposal. And then to wrap it up, our Hoover at 85, that's somewhere between the volume of a garbage disposal and your lawnmower. So this is a very different kind of a way of looking at it, because this is really running a major gamut of extremes here. So if you think about how much louder is your lawnmower than a normal conversation, it's quite a lot louder. I mean, I don't know about you, but when I mow my lawn, I'm probably wanting to use some ear protection there because it's so loud. And the Hoover is just pushing that in this particular set of rankings. So gives you some perspective here. Don't always assume that number that you see there is just a linear scale. Oftentimes these exponential scales are telling you way more than you might think. If you want to look into these things more, learn more about decibels, Google decibel comparisons and things like that, and you can go on to all these pages on the internet that'll show you graphs and all sorts of things on exactly how many decibels different sorts of activities tend to be, and you can learn more about it that way.